Hello, welcome to another episode of Dolphins In Depth, Miami podcast to you by Miami Herald. I am your host, Omar Kelly, and in the latest chapter of As Dolphins World Turns, I bring on Barry Jackson, who is going to address the happenings of today, Barry. We had training camp day number 13. And before that, we had a press conference where Mike McDaniel thought he was going to be able to surprise you, Barry, by letting you know that Jaelen Phillips is going to be unleashed, taken off the PUP. But he thought he'd sneak that out there. However, Barry beat him to the punch and asked him specifically if Jaelen Phillips is going to be off the PUP. Where'd you get that hunch, Barry?
Just had a feeling. He seemed like he was getting closer, right? He was moving around well. We saw him cutting last week. So he looked good today. I know we're going to get into this on the show, but I was left with the belief that there's no reason why he shouldn't be ready to play on September 8th against Jacksonville. Might be on a pitch count, but I think he'll be able to contribute that day. And then you don't feel very bad about how they stand at outside linebacker with a combination of him and Quentin Bell and Chop Robinson and Emmanuel Ogbah and Mo Kamara. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, except for the fact that Chop Robinson's not healthy, even though he's working today. He's not healthy. He was held out in the last exhibition game. And then Mo Kamara is shut down as well. So I think that – and then they lost Cam Brown today to IR.
And Grayson Murphy. Yeah, two unfortunate losses. Brown can play both inside and outside linebacker. He would have been a key special teams player for them as well. Grayson Murphy has a knee injury. He's out for the season. Now, the new rules of IR this year allow teams to bring back two players who were placed on IR during preseason after 4 regular season games. However, most guys that you see put on IR now probably won't be back this year. We doubt we'll see Taj Robinson back, the 7th-round receiver. We doubt we'll see Grayson Murphy back. Brown, I suppose, is a possibility. You can bring back 8 players in all total off IR over the course of the season as long as they miss 4 games. Of those 8, 2 can come from guys who are on IR before your 53-man roster set. And Omar, we both recall that annoying rule where you had to be on the initial 53 and then placed on IR to preserve your opportunity to come back during the regular season. Fortunately, the NFL has tinkered with that rule a little bit, and now 2 guys who were placed on IR before that final cut-down day can return among the 8 total that can return during the regular season.
Let me ask you this question, Barry. If I told you were going to lose 3 players for the season in an exhibition game and 5 were going to get injured total, maybe even more, would you be willing to play important players in that exhibition game?
No, I'd be very reluctant to see how players are going down in preseason. It's always been an issue, but it seems even more so now. I would be reluctant to play your starters more than maybe 1 series against Washington. I wouldn't play them at all in game 3 at Tampa. This week I could make the case for maybe a series, but even that, you wonder, can what they get out of practice replicate the games enough where you aren't worried about rust? And rust is obviously the only concern when you play guys in preseason who are established, who have been in a system as long as Tua and Tyreek have here. Do you feel like your frontline players need to play at least a few snaps on Saturday night against Washington?
They need to play a few snaps either against Washington or Tampa Bay. It totally depends on where I am from a health standpoint. Totally depends on where I am from a consistency standpoint. I think the biggest group and unit that needs to play are the offensive line. They got to develop chemistry, cohesion, communication skills. That's going to be a challenge because there's going to be a new starting center in Liam Eichenberg. And then the running backs. Now, do I need my prominent running backs? Raheem Mostert isn't touching the field during the exhibition season. I'm not necessarily certain I'm too motivated to play Devon Achane because he got hurt the last exhibition season. So I'm pretty much making it the Jeff Wilson, Jalen Wright, and Chris Brooks show. Maybe if Savon comes back from his foot injury, I give him a little bit of run, but I don't even see that happening. I think Savon is probably going to begin the year on the IR and be stashed around. It is, that's how you keep talent around here. You just stash them and hide them. Maybe you shouldn't have took them off the PUP to begin with, and we wouldn't have this problem.
Well, one thing I do want to add on that real quickly is I can tell you the reason that Ahmed began the year on PUP was not because of the foot. His foot injury had healed. There was another issue that I'm aware of, but I can't share, that caused him to be on PUP. Then he re-aggravated the foot injury. So the foot was fine after last November's break. but then he re-aggravated it. That's why we see him in a boot. It seems unlikely
Barry,
he'll be.
did he have a foot injury or not? Did he have a foot injury?
So they could have been cautious with it. That's true. They absolutely could have been cautious.
They could have just been cautious and skirted the rules. Here you go, not being cautious, and all of a sudden his foot's in the boot. But that's a whole nother side subject. I always thought they were going to stash Savon Ahmed. So it makes no sense how many backs that they're carrying anyway. So let's move on. Let's move back to the injured player who's actually coming back. Now, the one concern I did have about Jaelen Phillips is once you take him off the PUP, you bust that bubble, and now if he does suffer a setback, you got to put him on IR. Now, in fairness to what the Miami Dolphins did, they just lost 3 edge rushers in one day. So when you lose 3 edge rushers at a position you're already thin at, Jaelen Phillips is on the borderline of being ready and capable of going, okay, let's take the bubble wrap off. He did nothing but individual drills, started moving around, no contact work. He did walkthroughs. I would be shocked if Jaelen Phillips actually plays in the joint practices against Washington on Thursday. And I'd be stunned and surprised if he plays at all at any point in the exhibition season in the next 2 weeks. Now, obviously, I'm like the number one Jaelen Phillips hater in the world right now because, you know, I talked about a limp in April and Jalen called me out for it. I love Jalen. I think he's a great player. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I want to see him come back and come back healthy. I don't want to see him rushed. Now, is there a possibility, Barry, that we are rushing this because there is a need?
No, I think that would go against everything that we know Mike McDaniel stands for, which is to be extra cautious and to not allow players to aggravate injuries. So I think he's on the timetable that his body has allowed him to. I've seen nothing from this Dolphins regime in the last year which has suggested they're ever aggressive with injuries and pushing for a guy to come back sooner, unlike football of yesteryear where it was commonplace. So I think he's on him September 8th. I think you're going to see an effective Jaelen Phillips on September 8th. He's a freak of nature. I think he's got all the correct genes you need to come back from an injury. And he talked today, we have some sound, he talked today about he thinks he's going to come back as a monster.
For Jalen, his game, he's always been an impact player. But he was, right when he got injured, he was kind of, there was momentum swinging in a positive regard towards his conviction of how to play his position. He was feeling a different level of confidence. And then for a guy that has ambitions as he does, he wants to be great in the worst way. It is a long vision challenge to attack this injury appropriately. And not something that by nature is totally his speed. He wants to fix the issue and go play. So to watch him diligently go about the process, and I thought he was going to be a number one violator of secretly overdoing what he was supposed to do. To be patient and to have the vision for his teammates, really, and what we're all relying upon him coming back and him being able to first find his footing from a health perspective and then be able to contribute to this team. I've been very proud of how he's attacked that, and while doing so, doing things that leaders do, which is you feel his presence as a teammate. I think even when he's not playing, he definitely took note. Both him and Bradley did of how Jalen Ramsey attacked his injury last year, and as a result, he's already impacted 2024 Dolphins before he's set on the field. So excited for him to go to the next stage, and we'll see how his body responds.
Yeah, this is about seeing how the body responds. Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Jaelen Phillips work tomorrow, and then he's on the 30-year-old program, even though he's not 30. This is just the way of the Miami Dolphins in terms of, one day on, one day off, one day on, especially when you have somebody who's coming back from an injury. We'll see how much Jaelen Phillips pushes it, but Jaelen Phillips is the first to admit, hey, I'm part of the problem as well, because I continuously push these rehabs and push myself and push the body, all because he's adamant about being there for the season opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And here's Jaelen Phillips.
Just happy to be back out here. It's a little bit of a tease. I'm ready to start hitting some things, but it was great. I'm just so blessed to, have my health and be out here running around with the boys.
Well, Mike mentioned that he feared that you might be the #1 violator as far as sneaking in extra workouts. How did you resist that temptation?
Man, just trying to take it day by day, trying not to get too ahead of myself. Obviously, I'm a high achiever, and I want to come back healthy as quick as possible. And so throughout this whole process, I've just been listening to my body, listening to my trainers, obviously, and it's been great so far. It's been definitely great.
What's been your main takeaway from this whole process?
It's just taught me a lot of patience. Your body's going to be ready when your body's ready. And so I've just been doing everything humanly possible to, give my body what it needs and take the time to get after it. But, I have such a good training staff in here, such a good strength staff, and we've been working our asses off for 8.5 months now. So I just, like I said, feel very fortunate to be back out here doing what I love again.
Yeah, the mental part is just as big as the physical. Are you in your mind completely comfortable in the Achilles, or might that take some time?
I think it's a process. I've definitely found that the more that I've done, the more confident I've gotten. Like, if you had asked me, 2 months ago or whatever, like, oh, you're going to be ready to play? Obviously, like, I don't know. Like, I hadn't done anything yet. But the more that I, keep, like, putting load through it and doing football movements, I just get more and more confident every day. So, yeah, I feel great.
Certainly, if we had told you at the time of the injury you'd be back practicing on August 12th, what do you think you would have said at the time?
I wouldn't be surprised because, like I said, I'm a high achiever and I've been pushing myself as much as I've been able to. So I didn't really know what the timeline was. Frankly, I didn't really care because what was more important to me was just taking it day by day, week by week. So, now that August is here, it just feels great. It feels really strong.
Yeah, so we're basically looking at a Jaelen Phillips return, more than likely for the season opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Probably will be on a snap count, pitch count situation. That means that Chop Robinson, Mohamed Kamara, both who happen to be injured, Emmanuel Agba, and Quentin Bell will probably be the 5 edge guys that are out there for the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, Quentin Bell has been one of the more pleasant surprises of training camp, and we all know what Emmanuel Agba can do, and he seems to be a better scheme fit for this defense. Now the question is, Barry, what's the situation on Bradley Chubb? Are we ready to rush him back too?
I think it's going to be a while. Unlike Phillips, Chubb has not worked out in front of us during these practices, but the forecast for him had always been more along the lines of October potentially. So we've seen nothing from Chubb that makes us think anything is imminent with him. So I think a realistic target would be maybe week 6, week 7, week 8. I think they'll be fine there with that timetable. The bigger concern for me is injuries, not particularly serious ones elsewhere among your key players, but injuries that are keeping players sidelined or limited. Jordan Poyer, for the first time in a week, did some individual work today. He can't do teamwork. He's got a thumb injury, according to his wife. Injuries now across the defensive line with Gallimore.
We don't have to credit his wife anymore. He's got a cast with a casted thumb on it right now.
Exactly. So. Right. On the defensive line, I'm a little concerned we haven't seen Benito Jones in 3 days. Gallimore has been injured as well. Inside linebacker Jordan Brooks came back today, so that was a good sign. Offensively, you're still without Beckham. He's not going to be back off PUP this week. Berrios did come back today. Ezukama came back today, so that's encouraging. Your 2 tight ends who are battling for one roster spot are both out. Fortson's out with a stinger, and Tanner Connor's out with what appeared to be rib injuries. We're not certain if it is indeed ribs because the Dolphins don't disclose that, so that's a concern. And Jeff Wilson, who was beat up some last year and has really dealt with injuries, he is out as well at running back. He was injured during the game Friday based on something that Mike McDaniel said. So that gets you caught up on injuries, and it brings us to, Omar, one of your favorite topics, offensive line. So no Aaron Brewer for several weeks, probably. He has a hand injury. And today we found out what plan B is at center, and it was not a surprise. Tell us about that.
Surprise. No, Liam Eichenberg is the center, is the backup center. He's going to be the backup center no matter how much Liam dislikes it or not. That's just a position. You're actually good at the job, Liam. Sorry. Now, where that impacts Liam is his ability to settle in as a starting right guard. And that's a position that he really wants. That's a spot that he covets. Obviously, now we're looking at basically 2 weeks where he's not going to be able to play that position, which opens up the door, as we talked about in the last episode. One of the guys that I was really impressed with in the exhibition game, Jack Driscoll. However, seems like Jack Driscoll is going to be in line because old man Lester Cotton, and I say old man even though he's a young player, Lester Cotton, who started 8 games for the Miami Dolphins last year, primarily at the left guard spot, he seems to be the front runner to fill in for Liam Eichenberg and give himself the opportunity to prove. Because here's my thing, Barry. Has Liam taken the job? Did he raise his hand and give the right answer to the test? My answer to that would be no. Okay, well,
it was competitive between Liam and Cotton at right guard. I think Liam probably would have won the job, but I'm not certain of that. We know how effusive Mike McDaniel has been about Lester Cotton this month, calling him phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
He's been phenomenal. So maybe Cotton would have won the job anyway, but for now it looks like Liam at center, Cotton at right guard, and we'll all pray for the best. Yeah,
but Jack Driscoll, he filled in as center against the Atlanta Falcons in the exhibition game. He said that was the first time he'd actually played center in a game. He was nervous, but he didn't have any snapping issues. So, he was very thankful for that. And then he's there. He's going to get the opportunity. I think he's going to get a lot of run with the second team, especially when, this week in practice. This is a big week in practice because Washington's defensive line, fierce man eaters. They've got basically three defensive tackles, 4 defensive tackles that are starting caliber players, which include Burton, a first-round draft pick out of Illinois. He was, I thought he could have been a first-round pick for the Miami Dolphins, but clearly they wanted to go with Chop Robinson. We'll see who made a better decision there. And I'm very curious to see how that unit will perform. They did better. One of the standouts for Mike McDaniels about the exhibition season was how the offensive line performed in terms of them and their ability to reset the offensive line, the trenches, the battle. Can you reset the line? Can you take where the line of scrimmage is and move it 2 yards forward? And they were consistently able to do that against the Atlanta Falcons. The question is, will you be able to do that against a more forceful defensive front in the Washington Commanders? So we shall see. But here's Lester Cotton addressing his opportunity that he's being presented right now.
Firing off the ball, trying to, beat the guy next to us off the ball as fast as we can, because it just helps us, be better as a unit. Because you see one guy firing off the ball, you were like, all right, I got to get on his level or I look behind. So I see a lot of rookies also that are just taking what Bush was saying, taking what the vets are saying on the offensive line in the room, and they just put it to play and just having fun. You didn't see a lot of people out there nervous and, scared. We just went out there and just played, and whatever happened, happened.
He started about half a season last year, so it seems that nervous energy should be gone, right?
I think for any player that tell you that they don't get nervous is a liar. So I even to practices, I always got to take the time and pray to God, give my thanks and grace. And once I step on the field, I just ask God to just give me the strength to be mentally and physically strong.
What do you feel like you want to show these coaches this camp, these 2 final preseason games?
Not really anything. I just want to go out there and play the best ability if I can. I'm not really trying to go out there to prove anything. I'm not going out there to try to get attention. I'm just going out there to be the best player for our team that I can be.
Hey, Lester, one thing that Mike White said, I asked him after the game about how he performed, and he said one thing he was measuring himself on was keeping things calm, that he knew a lot of guys out there were rookies. This was the first time playing. Some other guys were stressing, making 53, so he wanted to keep things calm. How important is that for a backup quarterback when you come in the game? How much do people feed off that? How much do people look at the quarterback's eyes and feed off his mentality?
Oh, most definitely. You get a quarterback coming to a game, especially when it's not like a starter and you get a backup coming in the game. You want from the offensive line perspective, you want that quarterback to feel safe. You want him to feel like we got his back, that we're big brothers, and we're gonna make sure he get comfortable in the game. Like, cause you don't want a quarterback just get in the game and he got 5 guys in his face. That ain't gonna end well. So you want to at least try to get him to get into that comfort level to where he able to play comfortable. Cause now when he comfortable, he able to give us to play comfortable and fast. And now we able to, work as a unit. And if he on point, we all on point. So.
That was Lester Cotton, who was bringing up the challenges that the second unit faces, and Mike White and the confidence of the backup quarterbacks and the units that they work with. And in fairness to Mike White, and I think we've said this on this podcast consistently, not just Mike White, but Skylar Thompson, they are working with wide receivers who sometimes do not even know the hot routes. Sometimes they're not running the routes at the right depths. Sometimes have not worked with this quarterback from a chemistry standpoint. Sometimes they are running the wrong routes. And then offensive lines where sometimes there's just basic fundamental snapping issues going on, or, and these are not excuses. In fairness, they are facing adverse situations. And Mike McDaniel even addressed that. He is looking at how these quarterbacks handle and manage these adverse situations. Part of their job is in that huddle, they've got to evoke confidence. They've got to direct wide receivers if they don't know their routes. This is part of their job. And today was a little odd, Barry, because we didn't see Mike White take any snaps. Do you make anything of it?
Very strange. Tua for most of the day was an odd practice because part of the practice was done sort of at walk-through half-speed pace where guys were going in slow motion. It was the first slow-motion hurry-up that I've seen in a while in training camp practice. I know teams.
It's like Olympic speed walking, Barry.
Exactly right. So they were doing a 2-minute drill and a walkthrough. So it was on tape delay or slow delay, it seems. But Tua took 90% of the snaps today. Skylar Thompson came in late. No Mike White, which I thought was interesting. A couple other things for practice today. We talked about all the positions with injuries except corner. Ethan Bonner not participating today. So that was a bit of a red flag. Cam Smith is still out. That provided opportunities for
Jalen Ramsey didn't work.
Jalen Ramsey did not work. That's not a concern. His first veteran rest day, really all at camp. Storm Duck. Storm Johnson, of course, is the former running back. Storm Duck and Isaiah Johnson both bear monitoring the next couple weeks. Falcons were 0 for 3 when they threw against Isaiah Johnson, the Syracuse rookie, who Omar likes a lot. And Storm Duck, the former Louisville and NC State player, he got a lot of reps today with no Ramsey, with no Bonner. And the Falcons were 1 for 5 for 16 yards when targeting Storm Duck. Now, obviously, a lot of this was Taylor Heineke the other night, so you can't read too much into it. So that's going to be interesting to watch. 2 other things for practice today, Omar. Good to see Jordan Brooks back. Made a couple of nice plays. I know you've always wondered, well, is it he or Anthony Walker as a starter? To me, Jordan Brooks is a no-doubt starter with David Long. No, I think your question more had been David Long or Walker rather than, yeah, exactly. I think you'll see David Long who's at a good camp while dealing with a knee issue. I think you'll see Brooks and David Long as your starting backers, Riley and Walker off the bench. Curtis Bolton is a name I want to bring up. I don't see how he makes the 53, but he played the most snaps of anyone on Friday, which doesn't mean anything, obviously. He continues to make plays in practice, so I think he'll be someone they might call if they have a linebacker injury during the season. I don't think he'll be on the initial 53. More good work from Ogba today. And here's my other thing from practice today. Jonnu Smith, very uneven first week and a half, skipping every other day. Wasn't great early, has really come on the last few days. We've seen the skills from Jonnu Smith that has the Dolphins excited, right? With all the yak ability. So I was encouraged by a couple of his catches today, including one where he really had to lift his arm up to catch a pass that wasn't that well thrown. He caught it for a touchdown. So that encouraged me. Yeah. What encouraged you besides just seeing Jaelen Phillips moving around?
I was watching the defensive line closely today, seeing because of the absences, who's working. Calais Campbell worked today. I assume he's not going to work tomorrow. I'm probably going to work one day during Washington and not play in the exhibition game. And then Deshaun Hand is a player who I thought he had a very good preseason game. I thought he had a very good preseason showing. Now, he was probably out there playing with a level of talent beneath him. That's not saying much considering he's bounced around the NFL for the last couple of years, but he was an early draft pick from a stud from the University of Alabama that just didn't pan out in NFL. I'm also seeing Brandon Peely get a lot of run ahead of Tier Tart, and That's a little bit puzzling to me. That's a little bit perplexing. And it's not that Tier Tart doesn't have an ability, and I see Tier Tart playing on different spots on the defensive line now. So he's being cross-trained, and he's gaining a little bit of more versatility. You talked about the cornerback situation with you mentioned the two rookies. There's another one, Jason Maitre,
the Wisconsin kid, who to me was the most impressive of the three early on in camp, and he's maintained a level of consistency. Which of these three has a chance to be another Needham or Kohu?
Oh, don't do that, Barry. You're putting me on the spot.
I think we need more evidence, a bigger body of work, which we're going to get against Washington, against Tampa Bay, and the joint practice is Thursday against Washington, Wednesday against Tampa Bay.
It really depends on your flavor. My flavor is I like big athletic cornerbacks that can turn with their hips and move, and that's Isaiah Johnson. And I know Storm Duck is capable. I know he's out there doing well. I think Jason Maitre, I would agree with you, has been the top performer of all the three in practices. You know, we talk about practice, not the game. Practice. I like, and he's not going to make the team. He's not going to make the 53. But maybe he's a practice squad guy. But Isaiah Johnson, anytime I watch him, the skills and ability, it just makes things happen on special teams and in the cornerback unit. Like, he's the body of a safety, 6'3", 205 pounds. He moves well. That intrigues me, Barry. I'm not going to lie to you. I like a big man that can move. Like,
absolutely. And the guy who's gained the most as far as the stock going up, in my view, over the last few days is Patrick Morris. I wasn't even sure he would make the 53 as a rookie. Now he's around the ball enough. He was impactful in his 38 snaps to the 2000.
He had one good game, Barry.
I know.
One good game. Are we crowning him after one good game?
But do teams cut their draft picks? Typically not.
Yeah,
unless
this team does.
So, I would just say he's in the mix now, probably more so than he was. Elijah Campbell and Marcus May are probably your third and fourth safeties, although you picked up on something interesting from Mike McDaniel on his safety watch today. Tell us that.
Yeah. I always pay attention to how coaches list players. It's never failed me, ever, Barry. And the fact that he mentioned Nick Needham ahead of Marcus May, who has started 77 games in his NFL career, I was like, ooh, light bulbs going off, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way I'm going to turn away a guy who started 77 NFL games. Yes, Marcus May doesn't look good in practice right now, but he started 77 NFL games. A team has franchise
appearances. Right.
Yeah, a team has franchise tagged him. Like, it's not like we're sitting here saying, I don't know if this guy can play. We know he can play. And then we've got Nick Needham, who we know Nick has been, I call him superstar. He's made plays at moments. He's had good games. He's had good moments. Didn't have a good moment against the Falcons because he nearly gift wrapped the game for the Falcons, basically touching the ball on special teams. Question is, who can help you more on special teams? And I don't know the answer there. But obviously, Nick Needham's ability to play, not just safety, but also nickel, then maybe go to the boundary, makes him a little bit more versatile. But what I do find interesting is, on a day like today, where you didn't have safeties, but you didn't have cornerbacks, you didn't even give Nick an opportunity to go out there and show what he could do at cornerback. And that was just like, does that mean he's locked up the safety spot? I don't know.
I'm not surprising, because he needs a quarterback depth without Smith.
Yeah.
It's odd to me. And I'll tell you what, I did a story about a month ago on signings that Greer has made between the start of May and the start of training camp. He's had success in that. Calais Campbell will be another success story. McCourty and some others have worked out in recent years. Isaiah Wynn did for 8 weeks last year. But there are some named players who have signed here after the draft, before training camp, who never make the team. Sony Michel is probably one of the better examples of that. A guy who signed in May did not make the roster. I bring this up because with Marcus May, he to me is the biggest mystery of a named guy, an established NFL guy, where you ask yourself, is he going to be on this team? To me, he's number one on that list of household names for NFL fans, where you wonder, does he stick in 53 if he's cut in late August? I don't think we're going to be shocked. He could make it. He might not make it.
He could be one of those veteran players.
And I guess, Omar, one more thing I would add is Yeah, Campbell, I think it depends a lot on how Campbell does. If Elijah Campbell convinces them that he could go in as their third safety and they wouldn't lose a lot from what they would get from
No doubt.
Poyer, then May's chances of sticking, I think, are diminished.
I think Elijah is number 3 safety no matter what. He's already a foundational player on special teams, so you know he's safe. To me, this is do you want to keep the rookie who had a sensational game 1 the exhibition season? I'm sorry, Barry. I could practice squad him, or I could potentially lose him and eventually get him back like I got Hayes back on the offensive line last year. I'm not cut. I know I haven't seen what I need to see from Marcus May, but I'm not cutting a guy with 77 starts on his resume to keep a 6th round pick guy who had one good game in the okay, do it again, yeah. And we do it again, and maybe I'll switch my tune. But
remember, the veterans, their salaries are guaranteed if they are on the roster with one. So that's one more reason why
you're right.
Might see a little playing around with Marcus May. Maybe he's not on the team in week 1, but then he suddenly appears in week 2. I just say watch out for that. We would not be shocked if he's not here, even though obviously we could make the case for him being on the roster. He's a good NFL safety. He started every game he's played, but there's a question mark there.
Absolutely. And speaking of question marks, we won't be one because we will be back tomorrow where we're wrapping up day 14 of Dolphins training camp, which leads us into, is that going to be the one that leads us into the Houston, or we got 2 more practices?
Yeah, we got practices Tuesday and Wednesday by themselves. And then Thursday, the Washington Commanders will visit, and hopefully there won't be another brouhaha like there was last week against Atlanta.
After you practice them for 3 days, I don't think they'll have much fight left in them, but we shall see. On that note, this has been Dolphins in Depth. Hopefully you're subscribed to the channel, and hopefully you're subscribed to the audio platforms, and we will be back tomorrow.